think I'm gonna speak in English, as many people can understand. I work mostly with performance art, but in the last years I also started to work with video, and I guess I started experimenting with video as well because I am one of the issues that I am interested the most in performance art is working with time, working with different conceptions of time, making questions about time and duration through different ways, because in the past I used to work as an actress, in theater, and I guess much of my work is somehow an answer to the theater convention, which was something that somehow bothered me. I wanted to because I wanted to work in a different way without thinking about fictional time. This is the first performance I ever did. The first performance I call actually performance, because later I would find out that much of my experimentation in theater had a lot to do with performance. But in fact, in this case, I travel with a group of visual artists through the San Francisco River, which is a really large river in Brazil, and which is usually called the National Integration River. And it's because it goes from the southeast of Brazil until the northeast. And then I decided to make this travel blindfolded. So I put bands in my eyes the moment I entered the boat, and I only took it off the moment the band's off, the moment the boat met the sea. And the travel was not as a whole made by boat, because there are some hydroelectric dams in the middle. So at some point I had to go by car. But in this case, the duration of the performance had to do with the extension of the river and the time I needed to travel through the different mediums of transport until I got to the end of the river, this moment where the different waters merge, the river and the sea as an infinite space. And it had a lot to do with other issues too, but at the same time it was somehow a first step in the field of the visual art, because I was traveling with many visual artists, and I had come from a very much different background, and so I decided to do, no, I have to do something in order to start to see.
Перевод нужен?
This is another work which is called Oscar, or Clash and Resistance, in which I pen a whole day in silence, and then I sit in front of a table with 3 crystal cups with water, And at first I wet my finger and pass in the border of the cups so that it makes sound, and I touch to make sound with my voice, to scream at the same tune of the crystal cup, trying to break them. And in this performance, the duration of time, the duration has to do with the relationship between the resistance of the body, in this case the resistance of the voice, and the resistance of the crystal, the material, because I can only stop making the performance in two different situations. Either if I manage to break one of the crystal cups, or if I lose my voice completely. So far, I never managed to break a crystal cup, but I'm gonna keep trying. The average duration of the performance is 2 hours and 40 minutes. I forgot to say that the time I was blindfolded during that travel and that first performance was 11 days. This is another performance, another way of working with time, which is called The Artificial Life of a Record Revolution, or How to Stop Oblivion, in which I was locked. I locked myself with a guy in a hotel room, which was a really cheap hotel in São Paulo, Brazil. In the other room there were prostitutes and transvestites working. It was transsexual, and it wasn't a clean place, a tidy hotel. And then we were together there for 3 days, and we couldn't look at each other. We couldn't talk, we couldn't touch each other, and we couldn't do anything, any distraction activities. We couldn't read, we couldn't write, we couldn't watch television or listen to music. And then but from hour to hour, we had to take a picture of one another. But the time I had to take a picture of him was not the same as his. So if I had to take a picture, for instance, at 1 o'clock, he had to take a picture at 1:30. And this was the only moment in which there was some kind of visual contact, but it was a visual contact through the camera. And also, it was like a pose, because there was an alarm clock which told us that it was the time to shoot the picture. And also the time was divided because we had 3 meals a day, because a guy from a nearby restaurant came to give us food through a small passage in the wall, in the door. And also, and then the time was divided in morning, afternoon, night, and because the windows were closed, so we had a small idea of the light changing, but not precisely. And then, but when the food arrived, we knew that a part of the day had gone. And also, in the 3 last days, the space was open to the public for 4 hours, so the public could come in and stay with us in the room as much as they wanted, but and we could look at them. They could touch us. The only restriction with the public was that we couldn't talk to them, couldn't speak. And this is another work in which the duration has to do with resistance, because I am with high heels, really tight white high heels, and with iPads in my eyes, and I start dancing, and I keep dancing until I reach the maximum point of exhaustion, until I fall on the floor and cannot move anymore. And in this case, there is the resistance of the body, but also some obstacles, like the body facing obstacles, facing limits, because there are the tight shoes, and also as I cannot see, I keep collapsing against things, against the space and people also. And there is also the duration of the performance has also a lot to do with the participation of the public, because usually the people, when they see that I am collapsing, they start to protect me. I think I'm gonna show a short stuff of the video documentation. first, the duration of the performance is usually 2 hours and 2 hours and a half. And these are the performance I did in a residency in Brazil. I spent 6 days with this silicone earplug, and as I have a small hearing disability, and I must use hearing aids usually, taking my hearing aids off and putting earplugs, I cannot hear at all. Then I spent 6 days without hearing and also without speaking. And then in the 7th day, I spent 24 hours speaking all the time, and I could only stop speaking if someone else spoke. So there couldn't be silence at all. If you started to talk to me, I would allow you to say, but I wouldn't. But as soon as you stopped speaking, I would continue. It was a constant flow of speech. And also one thing and also I will just mention really quickly 2 different ways of working with time, because in this case the duration was determined, in that case I mentioned, by the duration of the residency, which was 1 week. And in this case, for instance, I am speaking while the water of a kettle boils, and so the duration of the performance has to do with the time the water takes to boil, and the time I can, and also the resistance of the body, because the time I can keep my hand inside. And I could show other things, but I will just finish with a work that have somehow to do with what I'm gonna do here, because we work with a tape recorder. Because what interests me about tape recorders is that the tapes, which is a kind of technology we don't really use anymore, they are like condensing amount of time. And in this case, I spent 24 hours in a space in New York, and with a tape recorder, and I did it like this. I started to speak, speaking without stopping, recording the A side with my eyes closed, and then I changed the side and started speaking, recording the B side with the eyes open, and then I listened to the A side with my eyes closed again, and I listened to B with my eyes open, and then I started speaking again at the same tape. So I erased everything I had said before, and I did it for 24 hours inside the space. For a while the gallery was open, but then the gallery had to close, and I was locked inside, speaking or listening all the time. And even if my voice was, there was the sound of my voice all the time, either in the tape recorder or in live speech. there won't be time now to talk about the video. Then I will just finish with one video, but I think that videos are like some time lengths. They make time more clear. And then I usually work with sequence shot, and I like to work with real time or slow time. And I usually don't work with editing. Was to explore the difference between this slow rhythm, the subtle changes, and almost and this sound from the outside, the sound of the city. And these videos were in part of a series called Jacob Letter, which was many short videos which I was shot in a house that was to be demolished 2 days after, and then in a space that would disappear. Okay, it's this.